I lost an entire summer to a crack in my driveway. Not a big one, maybe a quarter-inch wide, running about 8 feet along the edge. Every 10 days, a fresh green line of weeds pushed up through it. And every 10 days, I pulled them, sprayed them, or torched them. By August, I'd bought 3 different weed killers, and the crack looked exactly the same as it did in May. Then a guy who'd maintained industrial parking lots for 30 years told me my timing was the entire problem. He said the reason I was losing wasn't the product. It was that I was fighting the wrong season. Here's what almost nobody understands about driveway weeds. What you see growing is the least important part of the story. The real action is happening underneath, inside a seam of packed dust, sand, and organic debris that has collected in the joint over years. That thin strip of material functions as a seed bank. Wind deposits seeds into it constantly, rain waters them, and the concrete on either side traps heat and moisture like a greenhouse. So when a weed gets pulled or the green top gets killed, what's been removed is one plant out of a reservoir holding hundreds of dormant seeds waiting their turn. That's why the regrowth feels endless. It's harvesting, not solving. The reason July specifically matters comes down to plant biology. In midsummer, under heat stress, most weeds shift into their strongest survival mode. They pull water and nutrients aggressively and drive resources down into the root system to survive drought. That same aggressive uptake is exactly what makes them vulnerable, because anything sitting in that crack gets pulled down deep instead of lingering on the surface. Meanwhile, the intense July sun multiplies the effect of whatever is applied. The identical treatment in cool, damp April sits inert on the surface, which is precisely why spring efforts always seem to disappoint. So what does the parking lot guy actually use? The answer is almost insultingly simple: horticultural vinegar, salt, and a few drops of dish soap. 3 things that cost a handful of dollars, and each one does a completely different job. The vinegar is the immediate killer, and its strength is what separates this from a useless internet tip. Kitchen vinegar runs about 5% acetic acid, which browns a few leaves and accomplishes very little. Horticultural vinegar runs 20 to 30%. At that concentration, the acid strips the waxy protective coating off the leaf surface and destroys the cell membranes underneath, so the plant loses moisture faster than it can replace it. On a hot July afternoon, that collapse happens within hours, not days. The salt is what buys the months. Once dissolved and carried down into the seam, salt raises the ionic concentration of the soil so severely that roots can no longer draw water in. It creates the opposite of what a root is designed to do, pulling moisture out of the plant instead of letting it enter. And unlike vinegar, salt doesn't break down in sunlight or evaporate. It stays in that packed seam through fall and winter, which is why the crack remains bare long after the vinegar is gone. The dish soap is the piece everyone overlooks, and it's the reason most homemade mixes fail. Weed leaves are naturally water repellent, so liquid poured on them beads up and rolls off before it can do anything at all. Soap is a surfactant, meaning it lowers surface tension and forces the liquid to spread flat and cling. It isn't killing anything. It's the delivery system that keeps the acid in contact long enough to matter. But before we go further, I need to tell you something real quick. My wife bet me nobody would watch a guy talk about driveway cracks for 10 minutes. So if this is helping you at all, hit that subscribe button and help me prove her wrong. I already lose every argument in this house. Let me win this one. Now, there's a critical distinction that decides whether this approach is smart or reckless, and it's the reason I call it forbidden. This belongs in cracks, seams, and joints in concrete, asphalt, brick, and gravel. It emphatically does not belong in garden beds, along lawn edges, or anywhere near plants meant to stay alive. Salt doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't leave. In a driveway seam, That permanence is the entire benefit. 6 feet away in a flower bed, it's a years-long mistake. Runoff matters just as much, which is why a sloped driveway draining toward a lawn or vegetable garden is the wrong candidate for the salt component entirely. Weather is the other variable that separates results from wasted effort. This is dry weather chemistry. Applied on a morning before a hot, cloudless afternoon, the acid works at maximum strength while the sun dehydrates the damaged tissue. Applied before rain, both the vinegar and the salt wash off the surface and out of the seam before accomplishing anything. 2 or 3 rain-free days afterward are what lock the salt into that packed material where it needs to stay. There's also a reason the industry doesn't push this. A gallon of horticultural vinegar and a bag of cheap salt costs a fraction of what commercial pre-emergent and post-emergent products cost, and it doesn't need reapplying every 6 weeks all season long. The recurring purchase is the business model. A single midsummer treatment that holds until spring doesn't fit that model at all. The other half of the equation is what happens after everything dies. That seam of accumulated dust and organic debris is the actual nursery. Once it's gone from the crack, there's no longer a medium for new seeds to germinate in, salt or no salt. People who treat the crack and leave the debris packed in there get one clean season. People who treat it and clear it out often get 2 or 3 because they removed the habitat rather than just the tenants living in it. And that reframes the whole problem. Weeds in a driveway aren't really a weed problem. They're a debris problem wearing a green disguise. A brand new slab with tight, clean joints doesn't grow anything, not because the concrete is hostile, but because there's nothing in the gaps for a seed to root into. Every year of neglected sweeping quietly builds that seed bank a little deeper, which is why the driveways that stay clear year after year usually belong to people who clear their seams, not people who buy the strongest chemical. Let me be honest about the trade-off. This isn't gentler than commercial herbicide in every sense. High-strength vinegar is a genuine acid that demands gloves and eye protection, and salt in soil is essentially permanent. What it is cheaper, faster acting in heat, and far longer lasting in the one place where nothing should ever grow again. That's the July window, and it closes fast. Drop a comment telling me how long your driveway stays clear. Subscribe if you want the next one.